speech already on that. I don't know if all of you were here. So, just to give you a bit of background on who we are. So, the company I work with, Founders Intelligence, was created by Brent Hoberman, who is also the founder of Founders Forum. And 10 years ago, we started the conferences and inviting a lot of startup founders and CEOs of big corporates. Here you can see, it was in Paris last week, that's Eric, the founder of SoundCloud, speaking with a CEO of corporates and some sessions talking together. And 10 years ago when we started the conferences, all these discussions were very interesting. A lot of people were discussing, startups were interested in working with corporates and the other way around, but it actually never ended in something satisfactory. And corporates really want to innovate, they want to launch new products, they want to be on top of what is happening in innovation. And on the other side, startups really want to have corporates as clients, but they struggle to work with them since corporates are really slow, they take a lot of time to work with them. So here's a bit of an overview of our network. So in our network we have the founders of Skyscanner, Skype, Apple, and here are some clients we worked with, so helping them doing innovation. And in our network we have corporates as well as the startups. And so all corporates I know here who are representing corporates, who are representing startups, but disruption and innovation is really happening in all sectors, and all corporates today really realize that. So here is a bit of an overview of the different industries where disruption happens. So Accor Hotel is a good example. They're a major hotel brand, and a couple of years ago they had the opportunity to invest in Airbnb, but they just thought it wasn't a threat. So they didn't invest in Airbnb, and suddenly they're losing a lot of market share versus Airbnb and One Fine Stay. So they very recently invested in One Fine Stay, but it's quite late. And now they are publicizing One Fine Stay to their customers and helping them. So they're really working together hand in hand with One Fine Stay, but corporates today should be aware of not being like Accor and being really on top of it and invest or work very early on with startups. So how do startups disrupt these industries, and how are they able to disrupt where corporates, which is their main industry and strength, are not able to do so? So startups really have the ability to move fast, to test and learn, whereas big corporates, and they've tried in the past with their R&D sectors, they try to, when they want to do an innovation, they invest a lot of money and a lot of time, but they do a project over maybe 3 years, investing a lot of money, and 3 years after, startups have already disrupted the different industries. So corporates today really need to work hand in hand with startups, and because it's a good way for them to test and learn very quickly, very efficiently, see if it's an interesting way to invest and move forward. And then if it is interesting, they can put much more money, much more effort, and disrupts eventually the whole of their core business. Benefits for both corporates and startup are multiples. So for corporates, it's, as I said, it's a very good way to understand where they should focus on, learn and test very quickly, and have that externalized, so they don't have to focus all their full-time employees do that. For startups, it's a very good way as well, because they have the capacity to suddenly work with a major client who's able to pay a lot. If they have a good program put in place, they're able as well to work with corporates, which is pretty difficult and not an easy way. So if the corporate puts in place a good innovation program, they would have allocated people to talk to. And it's for them a very good way of verification of their product, having a great brand behind them to push the startup and their products. So how our corporates can actually innovate. So a lot of people tried, a lot of people did it, and historically it would be the R&D sector. And today we see more and more corporates having different programs. So we have identified 5 ways of having innovation with corporates. So structured programs, it's allocated people in the companies. For instance, Unilever, the foundry. So they have a program very structured, they have a team, they do research on startups, and then they integrate the startups, and eventually they would adopt the products. Accelerators and corporate venturing, it's the corporate that will invest a lot of money, pushing really the products, having senior people advising the startups and helping them to become not a startup, but a proper product for the corporates. And then innovation workshops, competitions, hackathons, and innovation portals enables corporates to have direct access to startups. But before putting in place a program or a different thing, they really have to ask themselves, what is the goal of the corporates? Because a lot of all reasons are good, but they really need to understand why they're doing that. And there had been some mistakes by some corporates when they were not doing it for the good reason. So if you want, for instance, to do cultural change inside your company, and you then do a structured program, then you won't be able to have your own employees applying to the program, so you won't actually have an in-house innovation. So before corporates can change anything, they really need to take a step back and ask themselves what they want to change. So probably the most interesting ones, but the most difficult to put in place, are the structured programs and accelerator and venturing. It means on the side of the corporates that they have to invest some money to give numbers, from 1 million to 10 million. They have to allocate employees as well, full-time employees, to do so, because if they don't, startups won't be able to discuss and have the products being put in place. So it is a long process, but it does work. So here's an example of one client we worked with, Diageo, the liquor brand. They wanted to understand how they could solve some business issues. For instance, they have a lot of issues with counterfeit. There are a lot of bottles that are sold that are with fake alcohol inside. So they came up and they said, we are losing a lot of market share, we're losing a lot of money on that, how can we solve that? And we told them, we can put in place a program, we will do the screening of the startups and then present a couple of startups to the board. After the startups present, they would select one and then do a pilot. So we're piloting with Proxil, which was in the pharmaceutical industry. Pretty bad if you eat a fake drug, so they have very good technology that enables you to detect if the product is fake or not, and we applied that to bottles in Thailand. So this is now a pilot they're doing, and it's working successfully. And they may apply it to the rest of the world if they are happy with the outcomes of it. So corporates realize that they are disrupted everywhere, and we hear very often their fears on these different sectors. So sharing economy, so for instance BlaBlaCar disrupted completely the system of car ownership in France and now everywhere in the world. Uber is disrupting it as well. Companies such as Ford are afraid of losing market share. People won't own cars anymore in the future. IoT, so how houses are connected, how people interact with it, how the companies can gather data information and communicate directly with the end consumer. So that is a major sector. Blockchain is changing completely the sector of insurance, how insurance can be structured, how people can relate to it, and everyone in the insurance and banking industry are now thinking of working with blockchain. So we have a couple of clients in the private equity world who are trying to understand what it is. They really want to be on top of it, and to do so, they do programs to work with startups that are using blockchain. Another sector that is worrying a lot of people, and people don't really understand how to be on top of it, is cybersecurity. How can they secure the whole business, the whole process? Corporates are working very strongly with it, but they're using a lot of money, billions, because of security breaches. And the last one is crowdsourcing. So people today own the decision making. It's not brands anymore that are pushing advertisements and people are just receiving the advertisement, but now it's actually corporates need to understand how they can gather the data from the consumers. So if you look at the new generation using Instagram or Snapchat, or people just looking at YouTube, is the crowd who is the decision maker. So they decide what works, what they like, and also, as mentioned previously, they decide what works, what doesn't work in terms of funding. If they put a lot of money, they believe in the product, it's a prerequisite and it's a proof of concept. So the crowd really owns now the decision making. And all the companies in the advertisement industry are trying to understand how they can work with the crowd. So they come up with a lot of startups such as Olapik, for instance, which is a company that enables you to screen the whole of social medias to see if there were any pictures of your products. So if you had bottles, if you're Diageo, if you had bars, if you are Unilever, screen the pictures, take the ownership of the picture, use personalized pictures, and then use these pictures as advertisements. So all the different corporates are working with these different streams, and today they're thinking on how to integrate these different threats and change the threats as opportunities. So they're really pushing on that, coming to us, asking us how they can solve business issues, how they can change the corporate and innovation spirit in-house. They want to attract talent as well. Banks today are losing a lot of talents. Young people don't want anymore to work in banks. They all want to be entrepreneurs, but banks do need young talents, so they are really struggling with that. They're asking us to change their image, how they can be more innovative towards the young crowd, towards students. So these are all the different things we're trying to help them with. And so if there are any sectors corporates should think of, is really these different ones that I mentioned. And in the future, we will see a very big change of how corporates and startups work together, hopefully. And yeah, the change is in March already. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Does anybody have any questions or comments or contribution? Okay.